And now, a movie that makes me wonder why I do this to myself. Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today I am reviewing the 2019 movie Investigation 13. I picked this one as a lark. I didn't know anything about it, and I read the quick synopsis, and it intrigued me enough to want to click play. And right now it's available through any number of video rental, online distribution kind of thing, Amazon Prime, Apple iTunes Store, and so on and so forth. But I would really recommend saving your money because this movie was a terrible watch. Just getting it right on the table nice and early here. Halfway through, I was wondering why in the world I do this to myself, and I had to remind myself that having a YouTube review channel, maybe I can help people save a little money, save a little time, and do it for the greater good. This movie was directed by Christian De Lara and written by Clay Smith, and there's some, 5-mile overview of this one is you have the characters of Layla Parrish, Melanie Gates, Jared Krause, and a crew of, other miscellaneous characters, basically college students that you get the idea as the movie moves forward that they have proven scientifically the existence of life after death. And they have done that through the course of 12 investigations. You find out that the 12th one was a bit of a bum, but regardless, at least 11 solid investigations full of scientific evidence and so on and so forth. And they are proceeding on with their 13th and final one before they present it to the board and get all sorts of accolades and so on. So the 13th investigation that they want to do is at a closed down mental asylum that has this past history, especially with one particular former patient, Leonard Craven, aka the Mole Man. Obviously things don't go right, they start dropping off and they start getting killed and so on and so forth. Okay. It basically does kind of enter into standard low-effort horror movie fare from there, with nothing really extraordinary or exciting brought to the table. Nothing new, certainly. And I think the big problem with this movie, more than anything else, is that it mistook the premise for an excuse. And here's what I mean by that. This movie really seemed to care a lot about the Leonard Craven character. It established an elaborate backstory for him in honestly one of the cheesiest, stupidest ways I've ever seen put to celluloid. It had these single frame animation things. Instead of actually filming the backstory of Leonard Craven, it actually went through an animation sequence where it was just really, really low budget, low effort.
All right, settle down. Send your homework to the front. Leonard, did you do your homework?
No.
That's enough. Stay after class.
I think really, instead of going that route, should have been reapproached and try to figure out a more creative way to go about it if the budget was really that tight. And they cared a lot about the Leonard Craven character, enough to give him this elaborate backstory and enough to set up this whole thing. But the premise of it wasn't trying to find the mystery of Leonard Craven. It was the scientific approach to life after death. And that's the real hook. That's the premise of the movie. And it was given so little thought. They actually said, we have the scientific method and proof to solidify this. This is just this is more of the final nail in the coffin for our research that we are going to go out and do this, but we have already established it, but we're not going to tell you what it is. They actually specifically say that in this movie. And that was really frustrating for me. The premise of a movie is way more than just an excuse to get your main characters that are cannon fodder into an enclosed building with this villain that you have spent so much care and time for. That would be a different movie, and it should have a premise to reflect that. Instead, the premise was the scientific research, and it would have been very simple to create a movie based around that, and it would have been very interesting, and that is the big disappointing thing for me about this movie, was that the premise of it failed to live up to the rest of the plot. It would have been, something along the lines of, okay, we have figured out this argon gas mixture that mixed with an infrared light that you can actually see the orbs of energy of the passing spirits and so on and so forth. And now for our final paper, we're going to go ahead and do investigation 13. But now, instead of these benign spirits that we have documented, captured, and applied the scientific method to, we are going to go in, we are going to employ the same situations with controls, with scientific method, with sound theories and methods. And now we're going to be up against something that we never encountered before, say a demon, say a shadow figure, say a spirit that was actually born of a violent madman, something that is not benign and just passed on. So it would have been very easy to take the premise, move it into the movie, and expand on that. Instead, it's, we have done this, we're not going to show you how, and now we're going to go into a meat grinder situation with this other character that we've actually given some thought to. And that was another disappointing thing, is a villain that has so much care put into it was completely overshadowing the other characters that were basically just generic college students with nothing else on the table. No character development, no real unique characteristics or features, no backstory, no care. They were just there to be slaughtered. And that was very frustrating for me. This is the crew that, as the audience, we are following for 95% of the movie, the part of the movie that's not at least, haphazardly animated. And those are the ones that they're given the least amount of care to. It was very, very difficult to watch just because it was boring. And the infighting between the characters as the movie went on was so ridiculous that it just obviously was not given the care of thought. You had one investigator that was obviously gone. He wasn't answering his walkie-talkie. Everybody was freaking out, wondering where he was. And they find a chunk of meat with some blood, obviously a cause for concern. And then you had another character that was basically pinning it on somebody else with absolutely no proof, saying that, well, this is just an elaborate prop. He must have really spent some money on this. Okay, first of all, when somebody wants to fake something like that, they don't go out and buy an elaborate prop. They go and buy $3.99 a pound chuck roast and lop a piece off of it and toss it on the ground. Even, big budget Hollywood movies, when they want a chunk of meat, they don't go to the props department and say, I want the most elaborate special mix of whatever so that we can use this one piece over and over and over. It's like they go and buy a steak and lop it off and toss it on the ground and then use it over and over. So it was just absolutely ridiculous. All the infighting, all the lack of character development. And, another thing is, for all the care that they gave to the backstory of the villain design itself was pretty darn stupid. I honestly, I could not get behind it. You basically had this guy that was standing tall, lanky, and, you tossed some Amazon steampunk goggles on him. Literally these. It was just, there was really no care of craftsmanship with the characters, with the plot, with the premise, and with the villain, as hard as they tried. And it was ultimately just kind of a disappointing watch. I'm going to go and throw up all the scores here. As always, 4 different categories, each one with up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot obviously gets a pretty low score for me here. Same with the acting, same with the intention, because I didn't find it scary, interesting, entertaining, or anything of the sort. And as far as the technical goes, there was, for all the horrific things that happened and were happening in this mental institution, they showed very little of it. As far as any kind of unique kills or gore or slaughter or anything like that would actually, at the very least, scratch that itch for a horror movie lover, it really didn't show a whole lot. You mostly saw after effects and so on, and it just ultimately proved lackluster, uncared for, and cheap. And if you were working within a confined budget, that's fine. Several filmmakers have. That doesn't mean your movie should ever feel cheap. If it does, then you are working within a confined budget, then that means you need to work all the harder to come up with a script that will benefit from it, to come up with special effects that are clever enough that you can hit the grocery store and the dollar store and make it happen with some creativity. Through challenges and strife, creativity is born. It's not an excuse to phone it in. And that's what this movie did through and through, is it phoned it in, and I really cannot recommend it. So that's my review of Investigation 13. Please save your money. It's one that I would recommend people avoid actively. So with a score of 20 out of 100 points, that should about wrap this one up. I really thank you for joining me here today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like these videos, please click like and subscribe, and if you want to support me further, my Patreon link is below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.